And welcome back to Public Affairs on Peach. January is Cervical Cancer Awareness Month, and it's estimated this year there will be over 13,000 cases diagnosed in the U.S. It used to be one of the most common causes of cancer death for American women, but new tests and early detection have drastically lowered the death rate. And joining me now to talk about it is Interim Chief Medical Officer for the American Cancer Society, Dr. Lynn Lechtenfeld, with information you need to know. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Great. And are there any symptoms in talking about this? A lot of women say they feel maybe a little pain, but don't really go to the doctor.
Well, let's understand that for most cancers, no symptoms is the rule. Once you start feeling symptoms, usually there's something more serious going on. So we try to find cancers with early detection. We try to find cancers when someone is asymptomatic. In this case, a woman we would hope would be asymptomatic, no symptoms, at the time a cervical cancer was diagnosed.
So what would you recommend for screening for cervical cancer? How often would a woman need to be screened?
Well, the recommendations are complicated and they're very much individualized. So I would strongly recommend that a woman consult with their health professional to make sure they get the right test for them. Having said that, for the average woman starting at age 21, Pap tests every 3 years up to age 29, from 29 to 65, either the Pap test and the HPV or the HPV test every 5 years, or Pap test alone every 3 years up until 65, and if negative for a while, they can stop. But again, cancer.org, our website, is a good place to go to get the accurate information. And for some women, it may be more often, and for some women, once they get, if they have a hysterectomy, a complete hysterectomy, for example, they can potentially stop Pap smears depending on the reason, or screening depending on the reason for the hysterectomy itself.
Now, usually if you have HPV, if you know you have the human papillomavirus, is that cause for concern for cervical cancer?
Well, let's understand the reason we don't recommend HPV testing in young women between 21 and 29 is because almost all of them get the infection. And so the infection is there in a lot of us. And what happens over time, the good news is for most of us, our bodies deal with it and it goes away. For some, it persists and it can lead to causing cancer.
Wow. And when you talk about the vaccinations, I tried to get into that. And what ages do you recommend the kids get them?
So it's important, we think it's very important that young children be vaccinated. And you can start as early as 9, but certainly ages 11 to 12 are the prime target years for both girls and boys. You can continue vaccinating after that. We would recommend, and we have recommended up to age 26, but now some of the recommendations are saying even up into the mid-40s. However, we're still evaluating that evidence before we change our recommendations. It's important to be vaccinated before you become infected. That's when the vaccination is, works the best and has the best chance of avoiding any cervical cancer problems or other cancer problems later in life.
Do you find a lot of pediatricians, though, aren't giving the parents that advice? I know I never heard that when I was getting my kids vaccinated for all their school shots.
It's been a journey, and the good news is we're doing better at it now than we did before. But yes, not only health professionals, pediatricians, and other health professionals, and parents have to understand it's a routine vaccination. It prevents a serious disease. In fact, it prevents several different kinds of cancers. So we're actually starting to see in some parts of this country and some parts of the world a decline in early cancer lesions as a result of this vaccination program. We strongly support it at the American Cancer Society.
Wow, that's great information to hear. And for families to ask those questions of your pediatricians and your doctors, what else would you recommend they ask or let the doctor know when they're going in for testing? Any family history, is that important?
Well, family history is always important no matter what kind of cancer. In fact, one of the things I'm very surprised about is how many people I talk to who have cancer who have even been to major cancer centers where they have a strong family history and nobody's picked up. I even had that conversation yesterday. One of the things that's important, and you mentioned, you as a patient, as a person, have to be your own best advocate. You can't walk in and say, oh, it's a doctor, or oh, it's a healthcare place. You have to be able to write it down in advance. Ask the questions that are important to you. Family history is certainly among it. Know your family history. It's sometimes hard, but know your family history, and if you're concerned about it, or even if you're not concerned, say, is there anything here that I need to do as a result of this information?
Advocate for yourself.
Absolutely.
Definitely. So testing really helping now, and early detection.
Early detection. The sad reality is that our treatments have not made much progress. I mean, many women, unfortunately, of those women who are diagnosed with cervical cancer, unfortunately they present usually with later stage disease, a good number of them, and we don't realize that. We could do so much better. We think we can potentially eliminate, we certainly can reduce a lot the number of women who are at risk for cervical cancer or other HPV-related cancers. We can make a big dent in this, but we have to get that vaccination program in place, and then we will start to see the results over time.
I mean, Dedra doing great. She's 3 years, I think she said, in remission. Is that common in this day and age now?
Well, it depends on a lot of factors, and when you start talking about an individual person, it's very, there's a lot of information that's not available to us. So having said that, the best thing is early detection and HPV vaccination. If you have any symptoms, and this applies across the board, if you have any concern, so we can talk about breast cancer, we can talk about skin cancer, go see a health professional. Don't be afraid, ask the question, don't delay. That's what's probably some of the best advice. Our awareness today is so much different than it used to be, and that's a good thing. Let's take advantage of that and keep ourselves healthier.
Dr. Lynn, you're always so awesome. Great to talk to you again.
Terrific. I'm glad to be here.
Appreciate your time. When we come back, we're going to change gears a little bit, and more rain definitely on the way for us. We've gone from the near 70s to freezing temperatures this past week. What does that mean for your gorgeous garden and your beautiful yard? We're going to talk to an expert when we come back.